So you've got a group together and you're ready to kick off the adventure. But if you want to make sure that your game is fun and sustainable, you might want to pump the brakes and consider running a session 0. Welcome to the Wizards of Eem podcast. I am James.
I'm Ben.
And today we're going to talk about running session 0s in tabletop role-playing games and the huge benefit that they can have for a GM and for all the players at the table.
In Land of Eem, we actually baked in this idea of session 0 into the game. It's kind of essential to create all the backstory and stuff. But no matter what game you're playing, we think it's a good idea to do a session 0 just so everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, and it's a really helpful tool to get together and get comfortable with each other, honestly. The first step of it is just like getting into a room and accepting that you're all going to play together and play this game. It does a lot to actually create some camaraderie early on and to align everybody's goals both on and off the table. And with any pre-game, it gives everybody a chance to sort of settle in on a tone that everyone expects and will enjoy playing together.
Yeah. Are we going to play a really whimsical, goofy game? Or are we going to have, more spooky elements? We're going to, put some grimdark in our Land of Eem. Everyone should know that from the beginning so they know what to expect and aren't, off guard when it happens and there's, a lich eviscerating their Muppet.
Jesus Christ. Oh, sorry. I was never going to survive that one. That's step 1. That's the intro. There's not a lich eviscerating their Muppet.
I think you should just keep that in, to be honest.
I'll keep it in. Oh, that's how the magic's made, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness.
As a player, say you have this really serious fear of spiders or something. I don't want to mess with spiders. Just let that be known. Everyone gets that stuff on the table, talk about it. And that way you avoid those situations down the line that can just derail a campaign because someone had a bad experience.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be complex. It's really about setting expectations for what to expect playing the game. That's really what it's about. Then, obviously, there's the element of everybody being in the same room to make their characters together. This is great because it does a couple of things. It not only allows people to get a sense of each other's character, but it allows for people to get a sense of each other's character and how they may share stories. And in the Land of Eem, we often promote having characters that kick off the game having known one another as a great way to build camaraderie with the PC group and do your perilous traveling throughout the realms. This is it's a simple tool for being able to have stakes where everybody has stakes and they really care about each other's situations. You don't always have to do that. You can definitely introduce people to the games. We do it all the time. We did it with our buddy Darren. We did it with our buddy Peter into our own actual play. But it's a great way to start off a campaign so that, folks get to know each other, both on and off the table.
Yeah, it's also kind of important just to decide what everyone's going to play. Like in Land of Eem, what class are you going to be? We don't want to probably double up on a class. We don't want to have too much redundancy because when you get to the table, you want everyone to shine and have a spotlight. And you want to avoid the situation where I was imagining my character was going to be really good at inspiring people. So I put a +1 in it. But James was like, well, I'm going to do that too, but I've got +2 in inspire. So I'm going to be the one who's inspiring all the time. Just avoid those situations.
Right. And if you do come to the situation where 2 players want to be the same class, being able to have a discussion about how that would play out, maybe they go through different branches of abilities and are really different types of versions of that same class, which is very possible in the Land of Eem as well.
Especially with our Patreon material that you can buy right now.
Caught me off guard there, Costa. It's true. There is a lot of stuff on Patreon that kind of shows with the profession system, you can really manipulate a lot of the classes with a lot of different abilities to make stuff really unique, make it really, really unique. But you don't need that. You don't need that to be able to do it. Additionally, during the character creation process, there's just a lot of mechanics that could come up that people could discuss and figure out together and get a better understanding of how the gameplay would work, interpreting dice rolls, how to add bonuses or subtractions from skills or attributes, and just talking about like how ability may play out, like example abilities may play out in conjunction with other players and with the GM present.
It's a nice time to familiarize everyone with the basic rules, especially if you've never played before. And so, yeah, there's that step of character creation. And then in Land of Eem specifically, and other games do this as well, but you've got, establishing relationships with the party. The power of relationships is huge. And Session 0 is the time to link your PCs together and develop the shared history before you ever set foot on an adventure together. Like, it's assumed that the PCs are linked together.
Right. And what's great about relationships are obviously important to Land of Eem too, because so much of the land is level progression and experience is based around pursuing personal quests, role-playing with each other, everything but combat. And so developing strong relationships that are not only great for the players themselves and for personal quests, whether it's how your personal quest ties to your ally or your foe or your
rival,
your ally or your rival. But these are also a ton of tools that the GM gets to really engage with to become resources for the GM to weave these elements into the gameplay. Whether you're doing a straight up exploration hex crawl across the Mucklands or the Underlands, or you're planning a big campaign where you're going to be using travel as, a means of adventure between big moments. These are all really great elements that a GM can sprinkle in and help even throw wrenches into the works when certain quest goals maybe get diverted because of a random encounter that's really, sparks the imagination of the PCs, or a fiend that bubbles up from the sandbox or from an adventure.
Yeah, and doing it at the table during a Session 0 allows the GM to ask questions and develop ideas with the player. Be like, if the player has a kernel of an idea, the GM can prod them, be like, okay, so who is after you because of that? Or like, what are you up against? And sort of develop these ideas for an antagonist or something in their way. And without that conversation, if the players just write stuff and come to the table already and there's not that workshopping, then it's a less fruitful world for gameplay. Like when you have the Session 0 and there's this whole dialogue of all the players, and like someone else can chime in and be like, you know what, that would make sense for my character too. I want to be like involved with stopping the Sarpathy or whatever it is.
Right. So relationships they can really drive the fun because they let everybody at the table share the stakes. They give resources to the GM. And ultimately, when someone achieves their goals, everybody gets to share in that victory, just like everybody gets to share in the mishaps that take place if something goes wrong. So I'll vote for confidence doing relationships in a Session 0.
I can't stress enough how useful having these shared goals really keeps the campaign together over the course of many sessions. When you have characters sharing these personal goals, personal quests, it will make those moments during a campaign where everyone is like, okay, what are we doing? Like, I don't, like, why are we here? It makes it so much easier to get back on track because there's that core element that everyone kind of has with each other.
Yep. Just watch our actual play. Every single quest starts that way. What were we doing last time? I don't know, but we got to stop the Shadow Dragon. Like, it's like, it always comes back to the primary goals. And then the individual ones are just, filling in the gaps from what happened. And it's a lot lighter of a load to handle.
And the underlying stop Krog thing that we're all working back towards.
Yeah.
And when you're 40 and you're playing, every couple weeks or every month, you forget stuff.
You do.
Falling back on those things that you've written down together in the beginning is really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about best practices at the beginning and kind of peppered it through, but we talked about setting clear expectations, the tone, the play style, the safety. We talked about defining group goals so that everybody sort of has that group goal as well as their own goal, and doing it in Session 0 lets everybody share all that stuff. Ben and I designed the Land of Eem to tailor all of these things and incorporate all of these things as much as we could into what that Session 0 would be, so that we could engineer the kind of sustainable campaign with the whimsy and the fun and the understanding each other as much as we could, because that's exactly how we like to play. And we think others like these tools too. So if you're new to tabletop role-playing games and you want to give it a shot, check out landofelem.com. You can download the quick start guide for free, and you can check out the TTRPG safety toolkit. We've got a link in the description below. And if you're interested in learning how to play or going more into the mechanics of the game, there's a great video by Becca Scott over at Good Time Society that we've also linked into the description of this video. Check out these resources and see if this is the kind of game that would help you feel more comfortable running a session 0 and getting a campaign off of the ground.
Yeah. So to wrap up, before you dive headlong into something you've been working on for years, only to have it fall flat because you didn't take a second to set your expectations. Do jump into a session 0.
They tend to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like the first kickoff where you're not, expected to role play immediately. You're just getting a feel for everything. You set the expectations for tone and play style and safety, define your group goals, everyone's personal quests, and
and you get a minute to connect with the other players in a social environment so that you can get a feel for each other and know what it'll be like to have fun.
Exactly. So go forth and have fun, and we will see you next time.
Yes, indeed. Take it easy, folks.